Hey history students, Mr. Birch here and welcome to 8th grade social studies test practice questions. Today's topic is the transatlantic slave trade. As always, when you see the question, press pause, take a moment to read and answer, and then press play and we'll go over it together. Let's get started. Transatlantic slave trade is the title of the map here. Again, whenever you see an image, especially a map, whatever the image is, make sure you read the title. Sometimes that title alone gives you a lot of help. In this case, it doesn't really tell you anything that's not told in the question, but oftentimes it does. Which of the following was a major reason for the flow of the transatlantic slave trade shown on the map? What is the question asking? So what's the major reason? So the major reason for the flow of the transatlantic slave trade. So what caused this? Why is it happening? Well, what can I eliminate? We see the answer choices below are the economic demands of the plantation system, the construction needs of the railroad, increased textile manufacturing, and increased Western migration. Well, I'm going to say increased Western migration. That's from the east coast of the United States to the west, and that didn't play a major role in what was going on in the transatlantic slave trade here, right? So that just doesn't make a lot of sense. Why would people moving across the continent of North America from east to west cause more migration of the transatlantic slave trade happening there? Wouldn't really play a big role in that. And then the construction and needs of the railroad. Well, the transatlantic slave trade had very little impact on the railroad building. That was, again, part of Western migration, so it doesn't make sense there. So we're left with two answers. Well, what do we need to know? The transatlantic slave trade, sometimes referred to as the triangular trade, well, it was the shipping of kidnapped peoples from Africa to the Americas for use as slaves on plantations, usually in North America for harvesting and planting sugar, cotton, tobacco, rice, or indigo. All right, so the economic demands of the plantation system, right? It just makes sense. Slaves came, they worked on the plantations, and the demands of that plantation system is what caused the need for more slaves. Okay, transatlantic slave trade. Let's go into a little more detail here. The word transatlantic simply just means traveling across or passing the Atlantic Ocean. Like think about transportation, right? Transatlantic, don't get confused on that word. It just means going across the Atlantic. So it's the slave trade that went across the Atlantic Ocean. From the late 15th century to the 19th century, millions of people were kidnapped in Western Africa and shipped to the Americas as slaves. They were typically used in North America in the southern colonial states as farm workers. The larger farms were known as plantations, and many slave owners had as hundreds and hundreds of slaves working to produce large harvests of crops, making their owners very, very wealthy at the expense of the slaves. Here on the left, you see a couple images. One is an image of how the slaves were forced to lie down and stay virtually stacked one on top of the other as they made the middle passage from the Atlantic over to, or from Africa across the Atlantic to the Americas. And then you see another poster here that is the selling of a new shipment of slaves as they came in. So pretty devastating and terrible thing in American history, but something that we really need to know about for this test.